This is a podcast today that we're bringing forth because we have lots of questions from audience members, parents, friends, family members about what we really need to do to get kids on track for learning and stay on track for success.
Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success.
We are back, Falling for Learning podcast. We have esteemed colleague Lauren Moseley.
Ooh.
And there's myself, Taisha Fowler. Oh, wait, my actual name in the podcast world is TD Flenaugh. So I can't move from my alter ego, TD Flenaugh. Anyway, now there are specific questions, so we're going to address those. One of the first questions has to do with... First of all, I'm like, which question should I do first? But you know what? I'm going to let Miss Moseley choose. Which is the first question you want to address?
Hold on, let me see. Let me look at him. I think maybe the most important one is, what should parents be discussing with their child's teacher when there's like a conference, back to school night? Like, what questions or what should parents be looking for? That was
okay.
What should I be looking for when I talk
to
my child's teacher? So I think we should probably start.
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. I know that a lot of parents are first and foremost worried about behavior. Well, let me just say that at least they used to be. I know there's a shift where there are some parents that come in ready to go against teachers or to really hold teachers accountable. So sometimes there are parents who want to know what their kids' behavior is like.
Yeah.
And that is important, of course, because obviously if they're not cooperating with the teacher and with others, then they may be stopping learning from even happening. But so really important when we to at least, you could go ahead and ask the behavior question, but I feel like some teachers, some parents, that's the end of the question, right? Like, okay, well, they're doing okay in behavior. But really, those conferences are also about, where is your child in their learning journey?
Right.
Are they on grade level? What are some things that they could work on at home? What are some things that they're working on at school that the teacher noticed they need a little bit more support in? What do they really thrive in? Even so, that's another thing, making sure you know some strengths, because you want to build on what they already know.
Absolutely.
What else do you want to tell parents?
Yeah. Well, I think it was a good point. I think some parents want to focus on behavior because it's something that they can actually, some parents feel very comfortable with managing behavior. I can go home and talk to them about their behavior. But sometimes when it comes to academics, I notice a lot of my parents are like, whoa, this is new. This is not how I learned math. This is not how I learned to read. So they might not want to dig too. It's like, that's the teacher lane. I'm going to let you deal with the academic part of it. So I do have parents that, I will oftentimes say, hey, I think it's important to make learning very natural. And, a lot of times parents will say, well, I wasn't a great reader when I was in school, so reading is hard. Reading was a struggle. And you don't want to project that onto your child. You don't want to take your experience and say, well, it was hard. I know it was horrible. I didn't like it. So I know my child probably doesn't really like reading, or we don't read a lot at home, or you might even shy away from even, having a lot of books in your home. So I would say, just make sure that your experiences are yours, parents, and try to create a different kind of dynamic with your kids. If you didn't like school, okay, that was you. What can you do differently so that your child is a little bit more successful in maybe ways that you weren't? buying them books, just having a very print rich environment. I have the littles. We're starting off with things just, fundamentals of phonemic awareness. And I know parents are like, phonemic awareness, what is that? It's not just enough to know the alphabet song. I have one parents come in and say,
Mm,
"Oh yeah, my child, they know all of their letters. They can sing the whole alphabet song, but they didn't know any of the sounds." And so, unfortunately,
mm-hmm.
that's fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. That's what you need in order to read. Is you need to not just know the letters in order and know the letters. What is the name of the symbol, but you need to know what sounds those symbols make, and that is the foundation of reading. So, you know, there's lots of resources out there. There's lots of things, free resources online, things that parents can do to just get their kids a head start, and like, not just knowing just the alphabet song, but what those symbols actually represent, the sounds. So that's what I try to encourage my parents to do: print rich environment and foundational letter sounds.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think also what I was thinking about when you were saying, you know, to set a good learning environment at home.